Hey, it's Mo. I am so glad you're here. I always am. Lots of great natural light today, and today's video falls squarely in the sometimes our decisions are made for us category. We're going to be talking about the Elf Bite-Sized Face Duos, which I got about 2 weeks ago. The reason I say some decisions are made for us is because I ordered all 8 of these the day they were released on elfcosmetics.com. You know, the box came a few days later. I was very excited. I was hoping to do a review that weekend, but when I pulled them out, they were all lovely until I got the last one, and the last one looked like this. You can't see it very well, but it is literally just pulverized. I mean, it's just loose powder in the entire thing. It was completely done. So I couldn't even swatch it or anything. So then my dilemma was, do I just do the 7 that I received? Or do I reorder, wait for that one to come in, etc.? Well, I decided to reorder the color that got shattered and wait a couple weeks actually to do an entire and complete review on all 8 of these. So I've worn all of them more than once. I've swatched them. I have compared them to the Primer Infused blushes because I have all of the matte and all the shimmer in those shades as well. So I've compared the formula. I've found corresponding shades. The closest matches I could find in case you had questions about, well, is the formula similar to the Primer Infused or are the colors similar? And we'll compare all that stuff. But I will say, one good thing that came out of this, well, 2 good things actually that came out of this being broken. One, I gotta give props to Elf because this thing is just loose powder. That's all that's in here. It is not leaked on anything. It didn't get on any of the other packages. I've had it around for 2 weeks waiting to do the video and nothing has come out of it. So, I mean, I think that's pretty impressive. You know, it comes in one of those little bubble envelopes that like seal, have a sticky seal. So yay Elf for good packaging. And also the other reason is I'm actually kind of glad it worked out the way that it did, because now I've got a really solid idea about what I think about each of them, what colors work with what. I also have worn, like for a full day, I wore one of the new blushes on one side and I wore one of the Primer Infused blushes on the other for a full day wear test to see if they wore differently and that kind of thing. So I got lots of information for you. Of course, swatches, we're gonna swatch not only the blush and highlighter palettes, but I'll also swatch the blush colors next to what I think are the closest matches in the Primer Infused blushes. So lots of stuff today. And let's just start at the beginning and tell you what these are. Elf Bite-Sized Face Duos. They are the exact same size as the Elf Bite-Sized Eyeshadow Quads. So, you know, instead of being split into 4, they're split in half. This is a total of 4.6 grams. So that means there's 2.3 grams each of blush and of highlighter. Elf says that some of them are bronzers. There's a couple, I guess, that could be. To me, it all seems like a blush highlighter combo. You can make your own decision on that, I guess, as we swatch the colors. It's just the same packaging. It's just a little quick closure, very no frills packaging, and you can see what it looks like. So these are small, not a huge surprise there. $3 each, the same price also as the bite-size eyeshadow quads. So first, let's swatch the colors because you're probably interested in those. The one I'm holding, by the way, is Cantaloupe. This is, I think it's the lightest of all the shades. And I'm gonna swatch kind of the more peach, brownish leaning shades first, and then I'll do the more, I'll say pink mauve leaning shades. So again, this is Cantaloupe, the blush and the highlighter. Next is White Peach, a little more orange, as you can see. They feel nice to the touch. The highlighters maybe feel just a little bit dry to me. I mean, what I should say is they don't have that like super creamy feeling you occasionally get from highlighters. So again, there's White Peach. This is Spiced Apple. Bit of a, it's warm, but it's more neutral leaning. Did that make sense? Warm, neutral. And I am doing these a little bit heavier than I do eyeshadow swatches just because I think, you know, a blush I generally don't want to go on as heavily pigmented as an eyeshadow. So blush swatches usually I do a little bit heavier. So again, that's Spiced Apple. The next one is the one that arrived broken, and then I had to reorder. This is Coconut. So this is the one that I would say most people would say, well, that could be a bronzer. Of course, that's going to depend on your skin tone. And I've used it as a blush. So again, just gonna, whatever works for you, right? This is Coconut. So those are the first four, and the warmer leaning, more peach brown shades. And then the cooler, or I'll say more pink or mauve leaning tones. First one is Guava, pinky peach. There's Guava. Here is Lychee. That one feels even softer than some of the others. There is some variation, I'd say, in formula from pear to pear. Not vastly different, but just, you might notice one feels slightly smoother than the others. Smooth that out a bit. This one is Watermelon. And that one not quite as smooth feeling as that Lychee. That Lychee really is a very smooth feeling blush. And highlighter, actually. And Watermelon, to me, has this is the most pink leaning of the highlighters, I would say. You look at that one, that's Watermelon. And the last one is Pomegranate, which is a cool pinky berry. And the deepest of the more pink shades, as you'll see. This is Pomegranate. Most of these are matte, but there are a couple that I would call them satin more than shimmer. Pomegranate is one of them. Pomegranate, Watermelon, those two have a little bit of sheen, and the other one I think is Coconut. Just has the slightest bit of sheen. The rest are matte. And then I'm going to swatch these with kind of their comparison shade from the Primer Infused line. So Cantaloupe, this is we'll do the bite size first, and then I'll do the Primer Infused next to it. And Always Peachy. Oh, these feel so smooth. The Primer Infused do feel smoother to me. So there is Cantaloupe and Always Peachy. I guess I should show you those. So Cantaloupe and Always Peachy. White Peach and Always Silly. And again, these are the closest comparisons I could find. I'm not saying these are identical. Some of them are pretty darn close though. And again, so the bite size is first, and then the primer. Bite size primer. Spiced Apple and Always Earthy. So Spiced Apple, Always Earthy. Ooh, got this a little close together. You can see how close the shade is. Those are the two I actually wore for a full day, one on each side of my face. And then Coconut and Always Spicy. Coconut, remember, was the shade that arrived smashed, and I replaced it. Coconut, Always Spicy. You can see Always Spicy has a little more red in it. And then again, the more pink mauve tones, got Guava and Always Punchy. Guava, Always Punchy. Lychee and Always Rosy. Lychee, Always Rosy. Watermelon, Always Silly. Watermelon, Always Silly. And the last one is Pomegranate and Always Lucky. And these each have, this is one of the shimmer blushes. And as I said, this has a little bit of shimmer in it. So overall, at least in terms of swatching, the primer infused blushes still swatch a little stronger than the bite size, a little bit. So when I was testing these, and I've worn all of these, I've worn them all more than once, I've worn every color, all that stuff, and I used my Elf blush brush for all of them. Part of the reason I chose that was because it made sense to me to use an Elf brush with an Elf product in this particular case, but more importantly, I wanted to make sure the brush fit in the pan because these bite-sized face duos are obviously very small, certainly small for a blush, and if you can't get a brush in there, that would be annoying. So that's the brush I'm going to use. So I'm going to do one side with the bite size and one side with the primer infused, just so you can see how much picks up on the brush and how they apply and that kind of stuff. This is Guava and Always Punchy, and I'm using the same brush. I'll just clean it off between. So Guava will go in. You can see that fits in there. I didn't have any trouble using this brush. That's how much picked up, and I went in there kind of heavily. So we're going to put this on. This is Guava. And again, these shades are not identical matches, but they're close enough. You'll get the idea. So you saw how much I picked up on the brush, which did pick up easily. I mean, I felt like the brush fibers picked up the blush itself quite easily. And I am usually a less is more person. I'd rather build up than like try to take a blush down. So that's kind of one pass with Guava. I'm gonna go back in. I want you to be able to see how much I'm doing. I really like this color, this Guava shade, really pretty. Kind of that beautiful right there in the heart of Pinky Peach Land. So there's Guava. And then Always Punchy, which is the primer infused, this is a matte blush. I'll do the same thing and try to get in there at exactly the same amount. It's a little bit tricky. That's how much picked up. And I'll go on this side with Always Punchy. I love the primer infused blushes from Elf. I make no bones about that. I have reviewed every color, done swatches of every color, and they are pretty much my holy grail blush. I wear them almost every day when I'm not testing something else. So I went in twice with Guava, right? I'm gonna go in again with the primer infused. Now I do think the primer infused picks up a little more blush. I mean, it does, you can kind of tell that. So it's probably gonna be more than I want, but I'm trying to be as even-handed as I can. And again, did I pick up exactly the same amount of blush from both pans? Probably not. I mean, that's pretty, I'm not that scientific, let's put it that way. So, Always Punchy primer infused and Guava. So if I was gonna wear this today, maybe I will actually, I think I would go into Guava one more time. And again, I want you to see how that picks up now that you've seen how the primer infused picks up. That's pretty good. I mean, that picks up pretty well. But I do think I have to build these up a little bit more, the bite size. But they build up beautifully and they blend out very nicely. So we're pretty close there on matching. This side might be slightly more pink, but I don't think, you know, the average person would be like, she has two different blushes on. And I'm just cleaning off the brush, so there's nothing on it. I'm just gonna blend a little bit here. Even myself out. So primer infused and bite size. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to show you was I did tell you I did a wear test. So the colors that I wore that day, I wore Spiced Apple and Always Earthy. One on one side of my face, one on the other side of my face. And here's what that looked like when I put it on in the morning. And then here's what it looked like at the end of the day. So I felt like in terms of wear, both sides wore pretty much identically. They really did, which I was a little surprised by. I thought the primer infused might hang in there a little longer, but really they wore in terms of how long they stayed on my cheeks, and blush tends to go away fairly quickly on me, but they wore identically. The main reason I wanted to do that for you is, like I said, so you could see, okay, because I think people would be curious. I would be curious if I didn't know how these compare to the Primer Infused blushes, because those are such excellent blushes. The bite-size face duos had a lot to live up to, and so here are my kind of conclusions. I would say these are not identical formulas, but the bite size is a very good formula that's really close to the Primer Infused, but they're not exactly the same formula, at least based on my experimentation and testing. Elf could disagree with me. I mean, they know what's in their stuff, and I didn't go over every ingredient, but I'm just telling you in terms of look, wear time, how they pick up on the brush, that kind of stuff. Like I said, it was sort of serendipity that one shade was broken, because it gave me more time to get you what I think is even better information. And I hope that was helpful, because that is always my only purpose here. I absolutely love this stuff. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I'll talk to you soon.